seen as non-cooperative disobedience, right? Mahatma Gandhi? Bhagavad Gita is teaching non-cooperative disobedience. The civil disobedience movement. No conflicts. That's Bhagavad Gita's message, right? It's not Bhagavad Gita's message. Bhagavad Gita's message isn't violence either. Bhagavad Gita's message is know who you are. And you unpack knowing who you are, and it means you're part of something much bigger. And that something much bigger has a source, and you're part of that source. And you have a function in relation to that source. And there's steps of understanding what that relationship is with that source is, but it boils down to loving service. So Arjuna, he was wanting to do what Gandhi wanted, and Krishna convinced him otherwise. And the otherwise means that there was, from Krishna's perspective, there was a purpose. Krishna's descent, now I'm going off into the ocean of Bhagavad Gita a little bit, but the descent of Krishna into this world has three main purposes. You didn't get that far. It's not chapter 3 yet. Yeah. But it comes very soon in Bhagavad Gita. Three main reasons. You know what the word sadhu means?
Like a holy person.
Yeah. So he comes to give protection to sadhus. Pritranaya sadhunam. Sadhunam. To give protection to sadhus. And vinash means like put in their place, to destroy, and to check. Duskritis. Duskriti means people that do meritorious things to get some strength so they can do bad things with that strength. Kriti means merit, or you do some pious work and you get some kriti. And then you can take that kriti and do bad stuff with it. You can do good stuff with it. You can do bad stuff with it, but what gets the kriti is some good activity. Some people do good activities so they can do bad stuff. They do austerities so they can hurt people. So Krishna's second reason, Krishna comes to check those people. Vinash. And the third is dharma, you know that word, dharma, sangstha, to establish dharma, to restore dharma. When things get all messy, he comes to restore dharma. Those three things. Protect the sadhus, check the duskritis, and reestablish dharma. Revitalize, rejuvenate, restore dharma. Three things. So Krishna had been on this planet for some time, but there's still some duskritis, a whole bunch of them, remaining, and he had a plan to liberate them, not just put them in their place, to give them liberation, and then leave the sadhus the opportunity to make the earth planet a nice place. He had that plan. And he wanted Arjuna to be an instrument for that plan. He told Arjuna, if you don't do it, it's okay. It's going to happen anyways because it's my plan. And he showed him in this universal form. He showed him it's a done deal. Now, you don't have to do it. You have to be an instrument, but I want you to be the instrument. Because you're a warrior, you know how to do it. You know how to do it in a virtuous way. And these other people don't know anything about virtue. And they need to be checked. So, back and forth and back and forth. I'm ready. You have a wish to protect innocent people and to check the duskritis. I'm ready. So there they go, off to battle, and Krishna is his chariot driver. So but in between, there's many nice teachings. And did you happen to meet that fellow at the program
Yes.
that was walking around telling people it's all one? Did you meet the guy?
The one who had
All the questions, and then he went around trying to sign people up for his studying impersonal Bhagavad Gita.
yeah.
You met him? Yeah. So, the reason I'm asking is, I hope there's something is done about that fellow. Let's see. If nothing is done about that fellow, can you let me know?
Of course.
If he does it again next time, you'll let me know. But, you know, he just, you know, he can go do his thing. But, you know, somewhere else, please.
Yeah.
Huh?
I told him you can start your own club and go.
Okay. Whether he'll do that or he's got an audience set up. He'll just come and do his thing. Unless he's checked. Anyway, I'm off topic. Back to our topic. I was going to say, there's many people have different understandings of Bhagavad Gita. Especially for our newer people, because this comes at the end. You know, the human interest question, how'd you get started in all this anyways? What's your story? I mean, no, people ask me that all the time, so this is my story. Once upon a time, I was a young man. A few lifetimes ago. Maybe your age. 20? Yeah, that's about you. Yeah. So, I was inquisitive. And then it's good to be inquisitive. It's also good to know what you don't know. You know, be inquisitive about what you don't know rather than think you know what you don't know. And so, before I was a young man, I was a kid. When I was a kid, I heard about heaven. I asked Mom and Dad, what's it like there? What do people do? What's the travel advertisement? You know, we're supposed to want to go there. What do you do there? They didn't have an answer. I keep it short. I got a pat on the head, and it wasn't that cute, but no answer. No answer. I asked the priest. No answer. I stopped asking for a while. Got busy trying to be successful and like everybody's supposed to do, and got too busy to think about it. And then a little light went on. I started thinking about it again. And the thinking about it again was three things. Really simple. There's a higher reality. I have a conviction. There's something other than all of this. Next, I know that I don't know what it is. That's good to know that you don't know. And then the third is I want to know. So I started looking around. And gosh, because I wasn't looking around, I didn't see. There's so many options out there. I was like a kid in a candy store. Trying this, trying that, trying the other thing. I got a stomach ache. I better be careful here. And so I started narrowing down. And during that inquisitive phase, somebody that I had made some friendship with was a philosophy professor. And we developed a friendship outside of class. And he's a really nice man. George Bogert, nice guy, married. He would read his poetry, and he'd take me. We went together with his wife to the pottery room, and he would explain how making pots helped him center himself, center his energy. He was a philosophical guy. He lived his philosophy. And then one day he gave me Bhagavad Gita. And I didn't know what it was. I couldn't even pronounce it. But, because he gave it, I was carrying it around my clipboard, stack of books, and it was a skinny one, so it was up on the top. Then another friend, a grad student, said, hey, I got one of those too, but it's a different one, so why don't you take mine? Now I've got 2 Bhagavad Gitas. I haven't read either of them, and I thought, gosh, if there's 2, maybe there's more. So I went to the library, There were 5 other versions of Bhagavad Gita. I checked them all out. I read all 7, and I came to 2 conclusions. It's not a book of poetry, and I don't understand it. Some time passed. Somebody gave me Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. A devotee just gave me a copy, and I started to read it. And I found it was really easy to understand. I was puzzled. Why this is so easy to understand, the other ones I couldn't understand, but I kept reading it, and then I could understand why I could understand it. Because it was descending knowledge, it wasn't ascending knowledge. It wasn't a man with a flashlight looking for the sun. That's not how you find the sun. So, things led to more and more and more. So, 52 years later, here I am, practicing devotional service, following the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Now, how to explain Bhagavad Gita to people that don't know what it is? So some of the people like me in the Hare Krishna movement got together with some of the people at Oxford University who know the ivory tower version of how you explain Bhagavad Gita. So how you make Bhagavad Gita approachable to people in general. They went through the exercise and they came up with a very simple approach, They call it the Gita Values. They didn't call it a project, I call it a project. And after going through it a number of times and refining the language, they came up with 6 Gita Values to help people understand what's the message of Bhagavad Gita. Keep it simple. And so the language was refined many times, and there's certainly more than 6 values in Bhagavad Gita, but Gita Values. So that's what we're going to do this evening, is Gita Values. And I don't know if those of you that are here, if you received those 6 paragraphs. And if you didn't, you can ask Rukmini. If you didn't get a copy, he'll see that you get a copy. So just say Haribol to him, and he'll give you a copy of the 6 values. After. And I want to now explain the connection between values and spiritual culture. Because Bhagavad Gita, one way of saying, there's many ways of describing what Bhagavad Gita is. It's a treatise on yoga. That's one way to say what Bhagavad Gita is. And there's steps on the yoga ladder, and that leads you to the topmost rung of the yoga ladder, and that leads you to the goal of knowledge, or knowing who you are, in the fullest sense of knowing who you are. It's one way of describing Bhagavad Gita. It's spiritual culture, and it has values. They connect. There's something that I learned from a devotee who has a PhD in this topic, is in sociology, they speak of culture in terms of, well, they have different metaphors, but one of them is an iceberg of culture. It's a good one. I like it. So with an iceberg, unless you're a Titanic victim, you know that the tip of the iceberg is just a little bit of the iceberg, and there's a whole bunch of stuff below the tip of the iceberg, below the surface of the water. So culture similarly has things that are observable, and then there's things that are not observable. That's part of culture. Values is one of them. Things that people value. So here's a breakdown. Three layers. The top, the tip of the iceberg, is things that are observable, measurable, things your senses come in touch with. That's culture. Art, music, poetry, architecture, language, things that people do and say. Just got a message today from a devotee from Suriname. You know where Suriname is?
Oh.
You know where it is?
I know where Srimad.
Okay.
My best friend.
Okay. Well, he oversees the ISKCON activities in Suriname.
Oh, wow.
Well, they'll give you his name, and you can contact him and say Hari Bol. So he said there's a wealthy person in Suriname that really likes traditional Vedic architecture. He saw a photograph of the temple in, of all places, Salt Lake City, Utah. Chiru Prabhu and his wife Vaibhavi made this fantastic, right in the middle of Mormon Loka, a wonderful Vedic temple. So he, this devotee in Suriname, wants to contact whoever built that thing, the nice temple, and get some ideas and maybe some architectural drawings and some blueprints and things like that, so they can make a duplicate in Suriname. So that's the visible things with culture. Because to this man that has the money to build it, says, I want something that looks like that. Now, there's something behind he wants to build, because somebody else may want to build something like that. You have to have some, you have to only have some wealth, but you have to have some sense of not just beauty, aesthetic beauty, but some value, because it's not just an architecture, it's worship of Krishna. So below the tip of the iceberg is official beliefs of an individual or group of individuals or an organization or something. Mission statements, maybe some of you have been through that kind of exercise. Mission statements, what you say, this is really important. Because you can say what's really important, you don't necessarily do what's really important because there's other things pressing. But what you say is really important. Your official beliefs, belief systems. So behaviors impact values, values impact behaviors. There's a lot of interplay. So this topic is Gita Values, but there's something that's even below the values part of an iceberg, or culture of iceberg, and that's assumptions, deeply held beliefs, implicit conviction. Doesn't matter. Your values can change, your behaviors can change, and that doesn't change. There's some things in life that are just like that. Let's just say, for example, we're spirit, soul, we're not the body. It's an implicit reality. Someone may say, oh, I changed my mind. I think I'm this body. That's a change. There's their spirit, soul. Not an official belief. It's just a reality. And so the Gita Values certainly has as its basis and support unchanging realities. But it's part of culture. So spiritual culture has its spiritual values and its spiritual behaviors. And when there's an alignment, you have a good situation. And when they're out of alignment, you've got pain. Like your spine is out of alignment, it's painful. Go to a chiropractor. Now, two more things. There's a distinction between wisdom or knowledge in the higher sense of knowledge. Prabhupada used the word knowledge, not just knowing something, but acting according to what you know. And that's what real knowledge is and what wisdom is. So in China, I often call Bhagavad Gita wisdom literature, because that doesn't scare anybody. Wisdom literature, because they have their wisdom literature also. And interestingly, much of the wisdom has some similarities to Bhagavad Gita's wisdom. There's just a few things missing, like the spirit soul and the supreme soul. A couple of things are missing. But values, there's a lot of overlap. So therefore, it's really easy for people in China to take Krishna consciousness, because the values match. And then they really like the idea. They like the idea that there's a soul, and they really like kirtan. Boy, do they like kirtan and dancing. They love kirtan and dancing. Of course, everybody likes prasadam. But they really, so it's, now distinction between knowledge and wisdom and information. This is a real easy one. I've said this so many times, maybe 50 times. Some years ago, in India, there was an education conference because the chief educators in India realized we're not doing a good job at education. So the keynote speaker said, education in India today can be summarized in 5 words. Information, 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 no transformation. So the whole conference was how to bring transformation so we can do our job better. And the end of the conference was the government gave grants for people who come up with, they called it value education. It brings transformation of values. And so naturally the devotees made entries, and many of the devotees got awarded the grants to teach in schools value education. They couldn't exactly call it spiritual education. They called it value education. But it was spiritual education, because spiritual education has its values. But information, in this age of information technology, it doesn't bring transformation. When you have people become elevated without character, you got a dangerous thing going on. Information without character is very dangerous. Okay, so we're going to the side of wisdom and knowledge in the higher sense of what knowledge means, and not in the direction of information. So Bhagavad Gita has information for sure, but it has wisdom more importantly. And it has the potential, the potency to bring about transformation. When you're trying to bring about transformation, here's the last image before we begin. Liminal space. Liminal space means over on the left side is where you are, and over the right side is where you want to go, and there's a big gap in between where you are and where you want to go. Or even what your convictions are and where you are. And a big gap. And big gaps can be scary. Big gaps can prevent people from making a step. Or they make a step and they're just like, they run back the other way because they feel like they're nowhere. It's exactly what Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita. You didn't get there yet. But Arjuna says to Krishna, what happens for somebody that starts and doesn't finish? Aren't they nowhere? Bereft? Just like a riven cloud? You're neither here nor there. And Krishna's answer is, no. Any progress that's made spiritually is permanent. Supposing you do 5% this lifetime and that's it. Next lifetime you start at 6%. Because it's permanent. I'll take a good guess, educated guess, that all of us did some kind of spiritual practice before this lifetime. And we're just continuing wherever we left off, wherever that was. So some people, I've seen, some people, when they start, they go, shoo, and then they hit a plateau. And then then there's work to go beyond. And some people start down here, some people, so we're just, this is lifetimes, plural, of progress towards the goal. So it's really good to know what the goal is. It's really good to know what the goal is. And to get to the goal, it takes some time. And when you're going from where you are to where you want to go, it can be disappointing or discouraging and, struggle. Generally, transition is uncomfortable between where you are and where you want to go. Like teenage. Very uncomfortable. Or it's something. Moving from one job to another job, or moving something. So spiritual practice can be a little bit like that, but there's good news. In that liminal space in between where we are and where we want to go, Krishna is there to help us. He's just going to show on the screen there. There he is. And it's adventure. The unknown can be scary, or the unknown can be a great adventure. So we're going to walk that tightrope, and even just the rope that's in front of us that we're walking on, it's being made as we go along. So let's go along. Now, the devotees that worked on this project together, you'll have the PDF if you haven't received it yet. The first of those 6 values is Samadarshana. Sama means equal. Darshana means to see, like darshan. Go to the temple and take darshan of the deities. Darshan, to see. It's equal vision. Equal vision. Now, how do you have equal vision in a place where there's inequality, or it looks like there's inequality? For example, there's lots of different kinds of fruits. Now, I've never seen a tree that has so many different kinds of fruits on one tree, but it's an interesting tree. And so many types of insects, and so many types of birds, and so many types of aquatics, and so many types of animals. There's so much variety. So how are you going to have equal vision when there's so much variety, so many differences? Or just take our human species, and then there's so many differences, colors and language and cultures and dress and everything. So many flags, so many differences. Then even just take one nation, and within one nation there's so many differences of how people react to different situations by different people. So in all of these areas of differences, different life forms, different people, different situations, different exchanges, how are you supposed to come about equal vision? Like, sounds like Mission Impossible. Well, there's some good news. Bhagavad Gita helps us cross that barrier with, down the right-hand corner is a little key. And the upper left-hand corner, there's a lock in the shape of a heart. Put the key in the lock and you can open up the secret. Gita's idea of equal vision speaks of the equality of all living beings, where life is respected regardless of race, gender, caste, creed, and species. Seeing differences in the external, but the spark of life within, there's equality on that platform. You say it negatively. You're not going to get to equal vision if you see only in terms of the coverings of the soul. Say it positively. If you can see, while there's different coverings of the soul, there's equality on the spiritual platform, then you can see with equal vision. So here's a nice illustration. All those little sparks floating in the air, those are souls, in case you didn't recognize them. And they're souls not only within the heart of the gorilla and the tiger and this animal, that species. There's souls everywhere. There's souls everywhere. I mean, there's microbes and things floating around in the air, etc., etc. There's a soul. Wherever there's life, there's soul. Wherever there's a soul, there's life. So there's sarva gata in the language of Bhagavad Gita. Sarva means all. Gata means situated everywhere. Souls are situated everywhere. So that's what's the commonality. It's the soul. It's the eternal, unchanging spiritual energy. Give it a nice name so people may not get upset. Soul. And that in the Dr. Bronner's label in your house, There's the bottle of Dr. Bronner's soap. Heal soul. Every time I use it, I think, wait a minute. Heal soul. Souls don't, you can't damage a soul. You can't damage a soul. It can't be cut, it can't be this and that. Withered by wind, moistened by water. You know, you can't harm a soul. You can't heal a soul. You can heal consciousness. But there's an unchanging spiritual reality in life. And that's where Samadarshana comes. That's a Gita value. That those who become, those who live a life according to Gita values, that's a value they live by. Equality. Or seeing equally. Darshana. All living beings are spirit soul. Here's another image of different species of life. Even on the upper right side, that's up in the heavenly realms, but there's still one spirit soul, or qualitative oneness. So here we are. That little skinny guy, that's us. And there's three features of every soul: eternality, knowledge or cognizance, and bliss. Satchitananda in Sanskrit. Satchitananda. All souls have that same. That's the sameness of them. Their quality, their character. Personality is different, but the quality is the same. Here's another image that says the same thing. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. It's just looking at everything through the lens the other direction. Now, I didn't do this with our group at University of Maryland, but it's something I've had this. Become a brahmachari someday, and you'll find out that different, both university and high school teachers, they like to bring their students to the Hare Krishna temple. And they have a reason. There's many reasons, but one of them is, in religious studies, they're not supposed to say what's truth. There's not theology, like truth as opposed to non-truth. It's just religious studies. And they distinguish, I learned this from speaking with the students and the teachers, they distinguish the difference between this religion, that religion, based on their rituals. So we've got our rituals. Look, I'm wearing a ritual, and I'm dressed in a ritual, and I got stuff on my forehead that's a ritual. And so they like to come when we do our maximum rituals. So the maximum rituals in our temples starts at 7 o'clock. Here comes the pujari. Woo! That's a ritual. And then comes the song. That's a ritual. Then the curtain opens. That's a ritual. Everyone pays obeisances before the deities. That's a ritual. And then there's the deities. That's a ritual. And then we go and have Guru Puja. That's a ritual. Then we sit down and sing Jai Radha Madhava. That's a ritual. And then they have a class. And that, that's our ritual. That's, from their lens, it's the ritual time. So when it comes to, it depends on the age group, but something that Prabhupada did, so I do it sometimes, depending upon the age group, is you ask the kids, who's the smartest kid in the class? And they all know who the smartest kid in the class is. Everybody looks at the one person. They're the smartest kid in the class. Okay, do you mind answering some questions? Sure. Point your head. Point to your arm. Point to your leg. Point to your this. Now point to yourself. Commonly they go like this. The self is the whole body. Anyway, it's just a little exercise. So you say my arm, my hand, my leg, my head. Who's the I behind the my this, my that? My shirt, and then there's you. My shoe, and then there's you. So there's the covering, and then there's the what's being covered. The what's being covered is the soul. Same, you could say point to the soul. They don't know what to do. Now, what's the size of a soul? Anybody? So devotees that are, you know. The size of a tip of a hair.
I was close.
Close, you were close.
1/10,000.
The 10,000 part was right. Keshaga satabhagasya. Kesha means hair. Aga means tip. Shata means, 1,000. So, here it is, Shvetashvatara Upanishad. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again, each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, 1/10,000. Each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. Now, actually, there's no such measurement of souls, but it gives it in a picture because it's subatomic, smaller than the atom. And that smaller than the atom entity is the same soul or spiritual spark that's within a squirrel as within an elephant. So the body of an elephant is animated by that little spark. So it's very powerful. Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful spirit souls. Here's a nice verse. Probably I should change these fonts to be darker. This is Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, text number 9. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtained a certain type of ear. There's an elephant ear. Eye, an owl has nice big eyes. Tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. Thus he enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Through the senses, we contact sense objects, and with the hope that it's going to say, this is nice. And in the human form of life, all 5 senses are very nicely developed, and so we have an attraction to enjoy all kinds of things with our senses. Even in different bodies, every living entity is an amazing spirit soul. But this is now Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, text 38. The living entity, the conscious living entity, is covered by the illusory energy, just like an embryo is covered by the womb. An embryo is covered by the womb. So in the soul that's within the womb of a mother, of whatever the species, then it's a very covered state. So it's likened to life in a tree, which is a very covered state of consciousness. Or it can be compared to moving up the modes of nature, a mirror covered by dust. Mirror covered by dust is more like passion compared to ignorance, and there's different animals and species that are in the mode of passion, and then in the mode of goodness. It's compared to fire covered by smoke. Mode of goodness, fire covered by smoke. So consciousness is there, but it's covered in different ways. And we are likened to the modes of nature. If somebody's not so familiar with the modes of nature, then this is a nice way to compare. Embryo covered by the womb, mirror covered by dust, fire covered by smoke. But, within is that conscious entity. Therefore, so here comes the Bhagavad Gita verse where Sama Darshana appears. Remember that was the value. Sama means equal. Darshan means to see. Equal vision. Here's the verse. The humble sages, that's that fellow on the right, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, that's that gentle fellow on the left, a cow right next to him, an elephant that's behind him, there's a dog in the foreground, and there's a fellow I wouldn't want to meet, a dog eater. He's going after the dog. So the coverings are different, but equal vision, seeing with equal vision, is to see the soul. You can see the distinctions of the coverings, and one can see the soul within. That's the principle of equal vision. Now that's a value, but it's resting upon, remember the iceberg model? It's the unchanging reality that's at the bottom of the iceberg, and there's a spirit soul within. So to actually get it and to live by it, to live by equal vision, it's not just mode of goodness, I'm okay, you're okay. It's a spiritual realization of what makes us okay or what makes us equal. This vision awards personhood to all, links everyone with the divine grace and consequently with each other. Divine grace, nice way of saying the source of everything, or the supreme, who is the source of everything, the cause of all causes. The cause of all causes links everything to everything because it's the source. We're linked because of our connection with the cause of all causes. Because there is a cause of all causes, there's a link between us and every other entity, every other soul. There's that skinny guy again, that's us. Equal vision begins with seeing ourselves as what we are and seeing each other, other living entities, as who they truly are. We'll say it negatively. Supposing you don't know who you are and you don't know who the other person is and you try to have a relationship. It's dysfunctional. And that's what goes on because people don't know who they are and they don't know who the other person is and they're trying to have a relationship. It's dysfunctional. It's not like pointing a finger and saying boo on you. It's just, it doesn't touch reality. Nice intention doesn't necessarily touch reality. It's a nice lesson to learn. It's sometimes a hard lesson to learn. Sometimes it hurts. Remember, as a small boy, I learned a lesson. Good intention isn't good enough. I'll tell you the story. When I was maybe 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, it was one of those years, every 13 years, I forget how you say the word, cicadas?
Cicadas?
That's the word?
Yeah.
The little guys that come out every 13 years, and they come in swarms.
Yeah.
They came to where I was, in the place where, and my mother wanted me to take this spray thing, a black flag, and go in the garage and spray the garage so that cicadas wouldn't get in the garage. So I did that, and I saw in the garage was our kitty cat. So the good intention was, let me protect the kitty cat by spraying the kitty cat with black flag.
Oh, no.
And in the morning, kitty cat was in the floor of the garage, dead. And it was a painful lesson. Good intention isn't good enough. It's true. It's a painful lesson to learn. But same with relationships and acting in a way that's really impactful and meaningful and wholesome, etc. You have to know who you are. You have to know who the other person is, at least in principle. And then spiritual culture, this value is to go further and further with purification, and you live your life that way. You see differences, and you act accordingly, responsibly to the differences. Prabhupada's expression, you don't go and embrace a tiger. Although, he's also a spirit soul. You behave accordingly, but still see their spirit soul. We're almost done. I think this is our last slide, in fact. So this is an interactive little session. What are some challenging situations where you feel that you cannot see different people with equal vision? Think of one person in your life with whom you have difficulty now or in the past. Write it down and how you felt when that difficulty was strong. With your inner vision, consciously see that person as spirit soul, no matter how they may have behaved externally. Now I'm thinking, what we did in the university was quality 3, so it was quite different. The exercises were different. So we're going to invite you to have a discussion with 2 or 3 is best, and discuss this. I remember the first time I taught this at Illinois Institute of Technology, the feedback afterwards was this was the best part. So take a look at what it says on the screen. Ask me if you have some questions. And we're going to ask you, when you're ready, turn to somebody near you, and 2 people, 3 people have a discussion. How you, by seeing the other person as spirit soul, how it impacted you to see them as spirit soul. Something in the past or even something presently, and how it might impact how your experience of that person, your relationship with that person. There's the covering, speech and behavior, whatever that caused the difficulty. And then see them as spirit soul. Clear? Whenever you're ready, turn to somebody and start having a conversation. 3 people is fine. 2 people is better than fine.
Yeah.
Well, like that was working the consciousness stuff. Like that's what people usually are like. I think you didn't. So I guess it felt like a whole like rush.
For example, like almost in my school, I had a person like she's obviously online. She was kind of a tense who knew that. For example, I did a high score, and then she goes to the teacher just to get 1 score more than 2 so that she can get up. I never had any kind of information about it as far as but yeah. But honestly, last night I felt for her, and now I can
And then like physically, look down.
It's like nobody's like that. It's easier. My mind's telling one thing, the heart is like there to say so I should have some pattern. Forgive me. But it's usually how to act. My means more to say.
We probably won't. But it would take a lot for us to talk again. But if he were to reach out to say, I want to talk, I want to get the opportunity. And I still ask finally. There's nobody more my family that they love. So I like every now and then say, hey, I was saying, I get school, yes, the job. The last time I reached out to him was very like 5. That was before I came to Krishna. Actually, yeah, that was before I came. I had taken off Hare Krishna. Okay, this happened prior. I was just getting it. I didn't understand all the things that I understand now. I have a lot more knowledge.
Okay. Are we ready to get back into it? If you need more time, I guess we could give you more time. We'll have time at the end. How's that? Yeah. One of our younger devotees here said he's in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita. And it's taking him a while because he's trying to learn how to apply what he reads. So this is to apply what you read, little exercise. It's meant to be practically applied. So the concept of seeing spirit soul can just remain something on the shelf. It's just a concept. But if you try to apply it and live by it, you can't necessarily see the soul directly, but see the spark of life within. While there's differences. And, it's a little easier to see when it's not so unpleasant, but when it's unpleasant, because that's the exercise, someone with whom you had difficulty. So there's a friction. So how do you see beyond the friction point and see the soul within? When you see the soul within, then you have a lot more freedom, first of all. You can see them as they are. And then a second is, you can be in the mood of, much more easily, you can be in the mood of service. How can be in service to this person who his speech or behavior is, unwholesome and not good for them, not good for me and other people that it intersects with. How can it be of service? And then ultimately the Supreme Soul. There's a nice verse amongst many nice verses in Srimad-Bhagavatam, where the Vishnu Dutas are explaining to Gopakumar what the effect is of speech that's harsh. And not only the other person, but even the person who's speaking it. Sound vibration has a very powerful impact, and it can just block the soul's ability to see the Supreme. And people can get into like arguments and battles and war and all kinds of things just from sound, how they speak to one another. So, seeing with spiritual vision has its practical benefits. There's challenges, but the that's like this liminal space thing. We're way over here, and then there's way over there. Bhagavad Gita with connecting with Krishna helps one get there. Don't stay in do it the same way, and think you're going to make spiritual progress. There has to be some transitioning, at least, starting with knowledge and the concept that's a spiritual concept, and then move. The medium of movement is service, but service is blocked if you just see the coverings, and you like it, you don't like it. Coverings. You have to go beyond it for spiritual knowledge. So that's the first Gita value. Let's see. I want to do something at the end. It has something to do with these Bhagavatams lined up over here. But let's just see if there's some discussion on the Gita values topic before we move to the next thing. We have a portable microphone, so if you just raise your hand, we'll bring you the portable microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a lot of questions, so I don't know where to start. First I want to start.
He's a lawyer, by the way, by profession. We've met. He's a nice lawyer, though.
I'll try to be nicer. So, chapter 2, verse 47 is somewhere where I find a lot of motivation in life, which is karmanyavadika raste ma phal vishukadacha. While I was a young kid, I have heard this many a times and couldn't understand it deeper, but now since I've started applying it in my practical life since last 4 or 5 years, it has been easier to grasp of what exactly it is trying to say. I'm quite motivated by the fact that you shouldn't be emotionally attached to the duties you perform.
Yeah.
But as you said, I'm a lawyer. I love my profession, and love is an emotion itself. So sometimes it gets very hard to not get emotionally attached to your work. And work is being performed by human beings, and sometimes human beings can be harsh to handle. So how do someone see those human beings as spirited souls and just get away with all those feelings, harsh feelings?
You have no control over it. You only have control over a very limited range of things. So that's that. You got the verse. So how to is just follow what the verse says. You're entitled to perform your prescribed duty. You're not entitled to the fruits. And the fruits include people that say things, do things that are, are just cuckoo or whatever. They're uncivilized, or they're inappropriate, or they're whatever they are. You tolerate because that you have no control over those. Now, Supposing you become a sadhu, then by being a sadhu, by having that control of your speech and your everything, you'll have more spiritual impact, and you can, by your very companionship or interaction with those persons, have some uplifting impact. And what to speak of if it's a person you work with, as a client or some other relationship. Now, it's not always smooth, which is your point. So you just maintain the consciousness of doing what you do. Beyond that verse, which is a karma yoga verse, there's bhakti. And you do that for the pleasure of Krishna. That's the high octane turbocharger. It carries you, beyond the turbulence. Because at the end of the day, or at the end of life, or at the end of that exchange, or, the purpose is your connection with Krishna. That's what's important. And if that is being fulfilled, the disturbances, etc., discerning how to best handle them, you'll have more freedom and more clarity than if there's attachment. You'll be a better instrument for Krishna if you're attached to Krishna instead of the circumstances, etc. The good and bad and the ugly.
Since we spoke about soul, I read something and heard something very interesting a couple of days ago while I was reading someone's autobiography, which I don't remember now, is that people forget what you say to them, but they don't forget how you made them feel, because technically that stays with the soul, how you made someone.
But it doesn't stay with the soul. It's vasana. It's an impression that's within the mind. It doesn't stay with the soul. The feelings aren't on the platform of the soul. How you made them feel, it doesn't directly touch the soul. Commonly. No, it's materially speaking.
Okay. And lastly, I would like to ask, which is probably unrelated to what we are discussing.
It's okay, but you're asking, your questions are going to get the ball rolling because everyone else is kind of quiet right now. Go ahead, say you have something else. Go ahead, keep the ball rolling. You're doing great.
So, I read in the Bhagavad Gita, that there are 5 things which makes a particular situation happen, which is
5 factors.
5 factors. And I actually want to know, of course, we understand karma, instruments, atma, everything, but the devyam. So how, in your perspective, how important is that?
How important
destiny?
Is which one?
The 5th factor, destiny.
What name it?
Devyam?
Endeavor? You're saying endeavor?
No, the destiny. I think it's called Devyam.
No.
I'm not sure.
But it's not destiny. I don't know what translation of Bhagavad you're reading, but it's the supreme. The sanction of the supreme is one of the 5 factors.
Right.
That's not destiny. Daivam doesn't mean destiny.
Okay, I probably misread it.
Should I get the verse? I can get the verse. You Mahamantra, you like looking up verses. 5 factors of action, chapter 18. We'll come back to you.
And how does destiny play a role
In what?
In progress of your life?
Well, the fruits of your karma, that's what destiny is. Karma and the fruits of your karma. Karma generates fruits of karma. But it plays a role, but it's not a determining factor. It's not for those who are engaged in spiritual activity. It's not a determining factor, or let's say a per se limiting factor. For example, Prabhupada's example. Supposing you become a devotee. Supposing you become a devotee, and you cut your finger. Destiny? According to what Prabhupada's saying, when some misfortune comes to a devotee, that misfortune is a token reminder of their past. What could have been a broken arm, you get a little cut finger. What becomes a broken arm could have been, like, your body gets mutilated, etc. So it's minimized as a token reminder. So that's for a devotee. Now, for those that aren't devotees, how important is destiny? It's a factor. But then, even supposing I'm walking along the path of my day, and here comes destiny. Now I still have choices to make. 5 factors of action is something is coming my way. That's a factor. But there's other factors. It's not the determining factor. It was destiny that, all the people that are in this room would be here. That's why we're in the room, because we're just little pawns on somebody's big chessboard, and it's just destiny. That's all. We're making choices. There's 3 other factors. Here they are. The 5 causes for accomplishment of all action. Adhishtanam, the place. Karta, the worker. Karanam, the instruments, that's 3. The place, the worker, the instruments. Different kinds of endeavor. So you can have a living, but if you don't endeavor, pratak vidha, different kinds of endeavor. Cheshta. And Daivam is the supreme, but it's not destiny. The supreme has to sanction, otherwise things don't happen. Daivam. So you guys can't, so I said I don't know what translation of Bhagavad Gita you're reading. But, the super soul, ultimately the super soul. That's how Prabhupada has translated it. Not destiny.
Can sanction of the Supreme be changed by karma?
Say it again. It's not the same. Not the same. It's not the same. Sanction of the Supreme is not the same as one's karma.
Can it be changed by karma?
No. The Supreme can change your karma, but karma can't change the Supreme. Our destiny, supposing it's raining. Oh, it's just destiny. But you can carry an umbrella, and then you can still go out and do stuff. That's the cheshta, the endeavor. Then the instrument and so forth. So there's 5 factors. Others. There we go.
Hello. Oh, okay, it's working. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
That was a really nice talk. So I'm glad
Different.
I was able to come out. Yeah. I was thinking back to a class I took over the summer on taking shelter of Krishna, and we talked a lot about chapter 3, and we talked about lust, like specifically. And so I was thinking, there's one of Prabhupada's purports where he said, well, first Krishna says that like lust is like fire and it can't be like extinguished. So Prabhupada in his purport was saying that we should direct our lust towards Krishna because it's not something that can like go away or be controlled. So we should.
Whoa. I don't know if that Prabhupada said you can't control it.
Well, no. He said we should direct it towards Krishna. And so I was wondering, like, how would one do that?
It depends. I mean, there's different ways one can do that. You know, and there are different kinds of lust. I mean, here I'll give you, there's multiple ways, but I'll give two. You know, an easier one, and then there's a more subtle and more difficult one. An easier one is passion makes people work very hard. When they work very hard in passion, the tendency is to want to be enjoyers of objects. So lust can literally mean sexual agitation, kind of lust, but it can, in a more general sense, mean wanting to be an enjoyer of objects. So Prabhupada's recommendation for us is work hard, but work hard for Krishna. So you have a work hard objective, and you know there's endeavor, ardent endeavor sometimes needed, but if it's for Krishna, it'll serve to elevate and purify consciousness. So instead of being directed towards being enjoyer of objects in a lustful manner, redirect that energy, working hard and endeavoring ardently for something, so that Krishna will be pleased. I mean, one example, there's several. One example is the efforts that were made for the publication of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I don't know if you've heard that story before, but Prabhupada pushed the devotees beyond human capacity, and they did it. And it was difficult. There was like recovery time afterwards. But marathon types of activities can be like that. Rath Yatra can be like that. Book distribution marathons can be like that. But it's applying the intense endeavor for something in a way that the objective is Krishna is to be pleased. So something that's more subtle that we don't have the adhikar for, the qualification for, is the gopis. And they directed that lust to Krishna. And even hearing about the gopis doing that, according to what Prabhupada writes in Krishna Book and what Jiva Goswami writes in his commentaries, is it purifies that tendency for lust, is to hear about the activities of the gopis. It doesn't mean licentiousness has now got a good rubber stamp on it and it's okay. But it's, it has the potential to purify mundane lust and direct it towards a transcendental picture of the gopis who have such love for Krishna. It looks like ordinary lust, but it's not. And it can elevate ours, the potential. Now, more commonly as it goes the other direction, people become incited to lustful mischief. But the potential is there.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, going once. Going twice. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the Bhagavatam set that's on the table over here. And probably most of you know, if not all of you know by now, that today is the 10th. And the 10th of this month is a full moon night, Purnima, in the month of Bhadra. And the month of Bhadra is the month that Krishna appeared. And the month of Bhadra is the month that Radharani appeared. And the month of Bhadra is the month when Lord Vamana appeared. And the month of Bhadra is a month when, at the end, there's a very special benediction given in Srimad-Bhagavatam. Though you see there's a full set of Srimad-Bhagavatams on the table. And there's 18,000 verses and 12 cantos. And towards the end of the last chapter of the last canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, there's a verse that says, on this day, not, the 10th of this month, but on the lunar calendar, the Purnima of this month, one who gives as a gift Srimad-Bhagavatam to others gets a very special benediction. That special benediction is a one-way ticket to the spiritual world. Pretty simple. There's on the screen, as long as technology is going to cooperate, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. There's a little video that our devotees that distribute Srimad-Bhagavatam have put together. It's really beautiful. It's a little song, nice graphics, and if it works, I'll be very happy. Let's see if it works. Oh.
As the world spins out of control, as forests burn and missiles fall, will you sit back and watch it all? Or give the gift and heed the call? Plant a seed of love and peace within the hearts of all. As tensions rise and all hope falls, will the cure solve it?
Notice November 10th. Oh, excuse me. September 10th, excuse me. September 10th. So here's the verse from Bhagavatam 12:13. If on the full moon day of the month of Bhadra, that's this month, look in the sky tonight, you'll see the full moon. Very bright. Last night was really bright. If on the full moon day of the month of Bhadra, one places Srimad-Bhagavatam on a golden throne and gives it as a gift, he will attain the supreme transcendental destination. Doesn't say tomorrow or just give a timeline. There's probably a little sacrifice unto Krishna that's needed to get there too. But it's a very auspicious day, a very auspicious activity on a very auspicious day. So what we've been doing during this visit here to Potomac area and the Baltimore area, encouraging people to receive Srimad-Bhagavatam, I was really surprised. Yesterday, with a group of people, a little more than the people here today, at the end of the evening, 20 Srimad-Bhagavatam sets went to people's homes, or were to be sent to some destination somewhere, some friend somewhere, or somebody in India or something like that. And it's nice. Some of you know, you're learning a Bhagavad Gita, then graduate study is Srimad-Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam describes specifically that in this dark age of Kali, the light of the Bhagavad gives light in this dark age of Kali. And those persons who take shelter of Srimad-Bhagavatam can be relieved of the unpleasantries of the age of Kali and be guided to a life of transcendence. And it's like that kind of literature. I can say from personal experience, it's my life. Bhagavatam is my life. It's the strength that keeps me going on doing as I've been doing for a number of years now. And I don't know how people who don't have the Bhagavatam do it, how they carry on. Or it's like a life that's a life that doesn't have life. So anyway, Bhagavatam brings life and vitality and spiritual strength. And by receiving it, and likewise by giving it, you'll benefit, others will benefit. So, do you want to say somebody want to say something about Bhagavatam sets and encourage people to take a Bhagavatam set with them?
One thing that comes to my mind is Prabhupada in the preface to the first canto, he says that this is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. And that touched my heart because it has everything under the sun that you want to know to change your life. It's like a panacea, it's all pervading. It's a cure for all the miseries that we are going through in this life, and any psychological condition that we can think of, whatever it may be envy, jealousy, gratitude, whatever it may be, that is there in Bhagavatam. You can not only learn from it, but you can bring it in your life, in a day-to-day life, the way the stories have been set forth for us in Srimad-Bhagavatam. So that's something that's close to my heart.
Something close to the heart. I really didn't know what the Bhagavatam was. I somewhat got familiar with it now, but when I first ran into the Krishna conscious devotees, I got a few books, and one of the books was the first canto. And I would always somewhat retreat back into the countryside. And I had a house with a friend, and we would have to read by a lantern. And he would always go down into the valley and disappear for a few days. And so I'd be there by myself in this cabin type house. And the bed was old and soft, I remember. There was nothing much to the walls. It was just a simple, rustic type existence. And I would lay there and read this book, this Bhagavatam. And talk about touching the heart. I mean, I was so inexperienced about everything in life, but there was an experience that I received from reading this book. I still, when I think of the introduction to this book, it was so beautiful. It was so comforting. It was so enlightening. I felt very much anxious and anxiety because I wanted all my friends to come and put themselves in the comfort of this knowledge. And I was no one. I wasn't advanced. I had hardly any experience. Can you hear me? Sorry. I'm done talking. No, the main thing was, my point is, though, the comfort and the beauty of this literature, everyone should try to experience. We have free will, we have intellect, and if you align it with the proper energy, it can manifest in yourself. Each of us is an individual, so the experience is really hard to place. But I tried to share that feeling of remoteness, but just so comforting, in a place that every time we turn around, it's a nightmare. So, I also had one question. If I never gave it to the people on a golden throne, do I get the credit?
The golden throne is your heart.
Oh, is it? Okay, thank you. Because I said I did it 5 times. Am I going back 5 times? Do I have a trump card?
Yeah, that's the right answer. The formality of the golden throne is not the essence. You're giving, as not just to get something. I get a nice ticket. You give because that's the gift to be given. That's the golden throne. The heart.
Thank you.